What's up, guys? Welcome to the line change. And in this video, we're going to be basically talking about why the Bowen Byram extension with the Buffalo Sabres that he signed, what was it, a week ago or something like that, is good for the Vancouver Canucks. And we're going to tell you why it is. Actually, rather, we're going to be going over an article that tells us why this extension is good for the Vancouver Canucks. Obviously, people know the whole history with Bowen Byram. He's from Cranbrook, BC, and the Canucks were very interested in Byram the last couple of months. There was obviously a lot of rumors, a lot of speculation, trade talk about Bowen Byram. And then he went and signed a 2-year extension with the Buffalo Sabres, avoiding arbitration. But as I mentioned in this article, we talk about why this extension is good for the Vancouver Canucks. And I know what you must be thinking. How is Bowen Byram extending with the Buffalo Sabres good for the Vancouver Canucks? Well, myself and this article is going to tell you exactly why. But before we dive into the article, I want to give a big shout out and thank you to my sponsor, Gassy Jack Art, maker of that incredible artwork you see over my shoulder there. And you guys can get your hands on artwork of your own by visiting GassyJackArt.com. You can also find him on Instagram at GassyJackArt. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and dive into the article. Obviously written by our friends at Canucks Army, written by Tyson Cole. And he goes on to say the Buffalo Sabres announced that they had avoided arbitration with defenseman Bowen Byram by agreeing to a 2-year, $12.5 million contract, which carries a $6.25 million AAV. This move likely posed as disappointing news for most Canucks fans who were hoping there was an outside chance at bringing the British Columbian home, but at this point, that wasn't really a realistic option. The Canucks' blue line is already a little crowded, especially on the left side, with Byram being a left-shot defenseman. Now, Byram did showcase that he can play his offside, playing most of the 24-25 season on the right side of the top pair in Buffalo with Rasmus Dahlin, but even then, the Canucks already have too many defensemen as it is to make room for Byram right now. Vancouver has Quinn Hughes, Philip Hronik, Marcus Pettersson, and Tyler Myers, who are lineup blocks. Derek Forbort likely is as well, but we could see him coming out of the lineup occasionally, depending on how many of their young defensemen are NHL ready. With that in mind, young blue liners Elias Pettersson, DPD Jr., Victor Mancini, and Tom Willander will have to battle with recently signed Pierre-Olivier Joseph for that sixth and final spot on the blue line. It makes it difficult to picture where Byram would have fit into the Canucks' current lineup, but that's not to say it won't make sense in 2 years when his freshly signed contract expires. Now, just to put some things into context before we continue on with this article, that contract that Byram signed, as we said, it was a 2-year contract, and it expires in 2027 when Bowen Byram becomes a unrestricted free agent at the age of 26. Considering the Sabres took Byram to arbitration, the Cranbrook, BC native got to pick the term of the contract. With him picking 2 years, that walks him straight to unrestricted free agency for the 2027 offseason. Before he signed, Colorado Avalanche analyst Adrian Dater mentioned on social media that Byram has an interest in being a Canuck. And of course he would. He's from BC. He's from Cranbrook. Why wouldn't he want to, at least some point in his career, play for his hometown team? Shortly after, Donnie and Dolly's Rick Dollywalt shared that the Canucks' interest in Byram was high, but they just couldn't get a deal done with the Sabres. But now they might not have to. In 2 years' time, if Byram still desires to become a Canuck, he can freely sign with Vancouver in the 2027 offseason, and that already projects to be a big offseason for the Canucks. Tyler Myers is set to become a free agent that summer. He will be 37 at the time and may lose his spot to younger right-shot defensemen in either Willander or Mancini. So even if Byram signs in Vancouver and is willing to play on the right side, there may not be room for him. However, there's a more high-profile defenseman that is set to become an unrestricted free agent that summer, Quinn Hughes. Now, Myers recently spoke on the Cam and Strick podcast. We actually covered that. You guys can check that out right here about how Hughes doesn't like the chatter about him potentially leaving in free agency, but it is still a talking point. Hughes is one of the best defensemen across the entire league in the midst of his prime and is due a substantial raise. As soon as he's extension eligible, Hughes will likely be met with a checkbook and a pen in his stall. However, if the Canucks aren't competitive, he could look to find a new home with a contender to battle for the Stanley Cup, whether that's with his brothers or not. If Hughes decides to move on, he will leave a massive void on the left side of the Canucks defense, let alone the offensive output he makes from the back end. Now, outside of Cale Makar, there's nobody who can replace the impact level that Hughes provides. However, if they are going to lose him, not saying that they will, there could very well be an offensive left shot defenseman that hits the market who wants to play in Vancouver. Enter Bowen Byram. Again, everybody's preference is for Hughes to re-sign and play out his entire NHL career in Vancouver, of course, but having Byram as a backup option to fill that void would slightly minimize the blow. There's no guarantee Byram signs with the Canucks either, but his recent 2-year contract with the Buffalo Sabres that walks him straight to unrestricted free agency certainly poses as an intriguing Hughes contingency plan for the Vancouver Canucks for the 2027 offseason. Now, of course, as we mentioned, this isn't guaranteed, but it is interesting that Bowen Byram chose to sign a 2-year contract with the Buffalo Sabres, or rather a 2-year extension, with the Buffalo Sabres that walks him straight into free agency. And then obviously all the speculation, all the talk about him wanting to be a Canuck one day. It definitely has a lot of fans and insiders as well chatting and talking about this, and about this being a real possibility that Byram could be a Vancouver Canuck in 2 years' time. But just imagine if the Canucks are able to re-sign Quinn Hughes and then also sign Bowen Byram. Just think about how, we already see how good our defense is looking right now. Just imagine if they were able to re-sign Quinn Hughes and sign Bowen Byram, and have them both playing for the Canucks. That would be absolutely, great. Obviously, Bowen Byram would be a second pairing. He wouldn't be a top pairing unless he played on the right side with Quinn Hughes. Just imagine that too. Bowen Byram and Quinn Hughes playing together on the same line. That would be something else. But I want to know what you guys think. Let me know in the comment section down below what you guys think about this possibility. Do you guys agree that this extension by Bowen Byram with the Buffalo Sabres is good for the Canucks? And could we see Bowen Byram, playing for his hometown team in 2 years' time? Let me know in the comment section down below. And as always, if you guys like this video, be sure to hit that like button. If you want to stay up to date on all your Vancouver Canucks content, be sure to smash that subscribe button and turn on your notifications so you don't miss a single video. You can find and interact with us on social media. You can find us on Facebook. Just search The Line Change. You can find us on Instagram at The Line Change. You can find us on X at Line Change Van. You can find us on TikTok at The TLC Podcast. You can also find us on Blue Sky at The Line Change. Feel free to give us a follow on all of our social media platforms. If you prefer an audio version of this podcast, you can find us on both Spotify and Apple Podcast. On Spotify, feel free to give us a follow as well as rate and review us. It is, of course, greatly appreciated. That's going to do it for this video. As always, let's go Canucks. Always believe in blue. And I'll see you guys in the next video.